When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like Aloe or Allbirds, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and great marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling, and for shoppers, buying, simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Nobody does online business better than Shopify. It's home of Shop Pay, the #1 checkout in the world. You can use it to boost conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going through to checkout. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income to upgrade your selling today. That's shopify.com/income.
Subtle results, still you, but with fewer lines. Botox Cosmetic, onabotulinum toxin A, is a prescription medicine used to temporarily make moderate to severe frown lines, crow's feet, and forehead lines look better in adults.
Effects of Botox Cosmetic may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness may be a sign of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Don't receive Botox Cosmetic if you have a skin infection. Side effects may include allergic reactions, injection site pain, headache, eyebrow and eyelid drooping, and eyelid swelling. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Tell your doctor about medical history, muscle or nerve conditions including ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome, and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects. For full safety information, visit BotoxCosmetic.com or call 877-351-0300.
See for yourself at BotoxCosmetic.com.
Dealing with hidradenitis suppurativa, HS, is tough. But you're not alone. Before I started Cosentyx, I looked at the website and saw it had many years of clinical research. That made me feel confident.
Cosentyx secukinumab is prescribed for adults with moderate to severe hidradenitis suppurativa, HS. Don't use if allergic to Cosentyx. Get checked for TB before starting. Increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur, like TB or other serious bacterial, fungal, or viral infections. Some were fatal. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms like fevers, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, had a vaccine or plan to, or if IBD symptoms develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions and severe eczema-like skin reactions may occur. Learn more at 1-844-COSENTYX or Cosentyx.com.
Don't wait. Ask your dermatologist about Cosentyx.
I'm Jane Kinnenmont.
And I'm Jason Pack.
And it is a lovely day here in London, and we are talking about the order of the British. Because what could be more orderly than the British queue? What could be more orderly than the rules-based order, the rule of law, the unwritten constitution that everyone just abides by, well, most of the time, all these British things? Well, at least Jason thinks so. And because he's a very orderly man, he is undergoing the pursuit of British citizenship. Now, it turns out that because we do have this democracy here in the UK, just expressing your love for Sir Keir Starmer is sadly not enough to be given the order of the British citizen. So Jason has been studying to learn about what you must know as a British citizen. And the good thing for me has been it's taught me a huge amount, because I frankly can't answer any of the questions in the British citizenship test. So Jason, can you tell us a bit more about this weird process you're going through?
Sure. So I think it's important to back up, which is that when I resigned my K Street DC job in 2018, during Trump 1, I decided that I needed to seek a European nationality. The natural one was going to be the UK, because that's where I did my graduate work and have so many friends, and it's an English-speaking country and I love it here, right? I then, when there was the Brexit, applied for something that Boris Johnson announced called the UK Global Talent Visa, which was a prestige kind of sweetheart program where you didn't need to be tied to employment or having a certain net worth or purchasing anything. And I was very fortunate to be awarded that program after I got the British Academy to endorse me as a global leader in my subfield. Don't ask what my subfield is.
Woo.
It isn't a podcast thing, but whatever.
The disorder of everything.
Yes.
A little subfield.
And then I've done the 3 years of residency, and there are some hiccups, and it's a very complicated application, but we're not going to talk about that today. We're merely talking about what does the UK government want you to know to pass the Life in the UK test. This is a 24-question test, and I studied for about 2 weeks. You download an app to your phone, you buy a book. It was extremely enlightening about what they want you to know, but I also just had a hysterical experience going to the test center and all the things that are there. And I think it gives some insight into the inability of today's governments to actually even, for example, administer a core function of sovereignty like the test that you need to become a citizen of their country, let alone the things that I would like governments to do, administering their rail network, building fiber optic cables, making HS2 happen. Well, we know that they can't do those things, and those things they outsource to public contractors who then rip them off, or they allow Thames Water to screw the citizen because the government doesn't do its own water. That bit I all knew, but I would have incorrectly thought that the government could administer a 24-question multiple-choice test about what it means to be British, but I was wrong.
Like you for your initial faith, at least, in our state institutions. What went so wrong?
Oh my God, Jane, it was literally, like if the Marx Brothers made a comedy movie about the Life in the UK citizenship test. The first thing is literally mind-blowing, which is that the UK government does not run the centres which administer the Life in the UK test. The only one in central London, meaning zone 1 of the tube, is at something called the Iranian Association.
Wow.
The Iranian Association is west of Kensington, near Hammersmith.
I'm just seeing the MAGA conspiracy theories happening right now.
And I thought, well, maybe the Iranian Association owns the building. No, you would be incorrect to think that. The Iranian Association administers the test. So you get to the test center, which is this hole in the wall in Hammersmith. And when they check you in, every one of the women who scanned me, we'll talk about the hysterical bit of the scans and who invigilated, they all had Iranian accents. And I'm going to guess that none of the people who administered the test were born in the UK.
Of course, no one who takes the test is born here, pretty much, because this is something that has been devised some years ago, for people who want to become citizens. But even as soon as the tests came in, it became a bit of a running joke among British people to look at the questions and say, do we know the rules of cricket? Or
No, they don't ask that. That would actually be reasonable. They ask things a lot crazier than that.
What are the saints' days of the 4 constituent nations? So even when they had perhaps more sensible questions, there are also things that you don't necessarily know or that you just pick up bits of as osmosis when you're a British citizen. So there is this slight, strange artificiality to it. But the idea that the Iranian Association is administering it is truly comic.
So I get there, and this woman is waiting for me at the door, and they're like, what's your name? And I'm like, Jason Pack. And she's like, oh, we don't have that. And then I point to my name on her list. Oh, Pack, Jason. Okay, great. Show me the barcode of the confirmation email. And I said, no, when I registered, it said, bring the ID that you've used to register for this exam. There was no mention of the barcode. I have my BRP UK Global Talent Visa card, and I gave it to her. And she said, no, we don't need that. However, when you book the Life in the UK test, it says you need to bring the piece of ID that you've used to register. She said, we don't need that. What we need is this email code barcode thing. She took my phone out of my hands without asking me if she could take my phone, and she began searching for it by typing in keywords.
So, Jason, I'm guessing, that this is in fact all part of the test, and that in fact this is an elaborate ruse where what is supposed to happen is that you're supposed to demonstrate your ability to remain patiently passive-aggressive in the face of bureaucratic provocations. You have to respond to each of these humiliations by saying, oh, sorry, meaning I'm really angry, and then just keep a straight face.
Right. So then she found the code that she wanted. I got sent to another little mini room cubicle where another Iranian woman with a hijab had a metal wand detector thing to see if I had any metal. And she's like, your jeans have a zipper. And I'm like, yes, that's the jean zipper. Take everything out of your pockets. And then the cutest thing in the world happened. A subcontinental gentleman, I don't know if he was from India or Pakistan, he appeared in a three-piece suit with a bow tie, and his shoes were literally so bright and shiny, they were either purchased for the occasion or very expertly polished. And I was very happy that he was going to be taking the test with me. The woman comes up to him and she's like, you can't wear a jacket. There are no jackets allowed in this. And he takes his jacket off and they're like, what's this? And that's obviously the vest of his three-piece suit. She's like, you're going to have to take that off. Then when he went into the room to get his scan thing, they made him undo his bow tie because it's like you could use this to cheat or to strangle someone. So the point is, despite the fact that you would think that it would be very well respected to show up in your three-piece suit with bow tie and bowler hat for your Life in the UK exam, they would make you take the whole thing off, take the bow tie off, and take the bowler hat off, because in some ways you might be using these things to cheat.
Wow, I did not realize this was going to be an intensely high security operation.
Well, they probably realized that, you could have like a chip in your ear or something that helps you cheat or whatever. But yeah, so the whole experience of getting there to take it was ridiculous.
So Jason has been regaling or interrogating the various Disorder co-hosts with these questions to see what we could answer. And one that really caused some disarray among our team: what do Welsh cakes consist of? Is it leeks, onions and cereal? Spices, flour and dried fruit? Flours, sausage and syrup? Or flours, cream and fresh fruits? And some people, such as our producer, were truly outraged that actually few Brits have a clue that Welsh cakes are very delicious concoctions made with spices, flour and dried fruits.
I knew that, though. I didn't even study that one. I actually just knew it. That just shows you what a nerd I am. Well, I kind of intuited it, You have a sense of these things. Like, there was a question about the Eisteddfod festival, which is the famous Welsh festival where they perform traditional songs and poetry and stuff. And I can't explain to you how, but I Celtically resonate, Jane. And without studying it, I encountered the question and I was like, yeah, that's the National Eisteddfod Festival.
Yeah, you're an honorary Welshman. I'm sure George will fully agree. Did they ask you any questions about haggises?
Yes, you need to know what's had at a Burns night supper. That's, come on, easy, please.
That's essential.
Yes,
that stuff.
come on.
Very important.
I didn't know that the SECC or whatever was in Glasgow, but I learned that over time. You need to know these kind of things. But what I find unbelievable that's worth going through with the listeners is just the absurd humor of this process. For example, I point to you question 8 from my actual test. Which of the following quotations from Shakespeare's plays and poetry is still often cited? A, just close your eyes and think of England.
That famous Shakespeare quote. He said it to all his lovers.
B, in a time of need, a man finds out his friends. C, wealth should be shared by kinsmen. D, the darling buds of May.
Which is truly weird because Shakespeare has made so many contributions to quotes, and none of them are the darling buds of May. The only context in which the darling buds of May is quoted from one of the sonnets is that it was the name of a TV programme in 1991. So it's a truly random thing that must have been in the mind of whoever exactly, or whichever AI was trying to write.
It must be an AI, because they ask you, how tall is the London Eye? Did you know the answer to that, Jane?
I got married on the London Eye, and
No
I
way.
can tell you it's taller than I am. Beyond that, is it, I'm going to guess, hang on, I'm 5 feet tall and a little bit.
They ask it in meters.
200 feet tall.
No, not even close. The answer is 135 meters.
Well, thank God we both know that, because now citizenship will function well and we will be able to have a stronger democracy united in a shared understanding of what is truly important.
So these questions also are not always having good grammar. I ask you question 14. who won against the Vikings? That is the exact wording of the question that was asked to me in my test. Who won against the Vikings? And I was
I
thinking,
think we did, right? It was us. What won it?
I was thinking the answer was it was the Rams when they blitzed Sam Darnold to death and they literally knocked him out of generational wealth with 9 sacks in the playoffs. Oh my God. But that's not the correct answer. The answer is not the Rams. Is it A, William the Conqueror, B, King Alfred the Great, C, Henry I, or D, Edward I, Jane?
It is one of the last 3. I'm saying number 3.
No, wrong. It's King Alfred the Great, and the irony is he didn't actually win against the Vikings. He won some minor battle, and then they had a peace treaty. So it's not even correct.
No, the only thing you're supposed to know about Alfred the Great is that he famously burnt some cakes. I also enjoyed one about the creative industries, because we know that the creative industries is a large part of our economy and one of the things that makes Britain great. So they had a rather wonderful, patriotic question. Which 2 film genres does Britain continue to dominate? And you thought it was comedy, okay, because you thought it was like the Love Actually, Paddington-y kind of stuff. But apparently it is special effects films and animation films. Who knew? I sent this to a British citizen friend of mine who works in the animation industry, who said, basically with quite a lot of swearing, I cannot believe that I would literally fail the citizenship test based on my apparent lack of knowledge of the one sector that I work in and actually know about. I had understood our animation industry was in freefall, but hey, what do I know?
Of course, but they ask you, who invented the telephone and was he British? And they say, yes, the telephone is a British invention.
It is a British invention, Jason. Now I have to take issue with this anti-Scottish prejudice of yours.
No, but
a Scot is a Scot. Even if he happened to be in America at the time, he is still a Scot.
He was a Canadian as well, and they financed and they built it all in Canada. But to get at how bad the grammar is here, question 13, what many of crosses compose the Union flag?
What many of crosses?
Do you know the answer to that? What many of crosses compose the Union flag?
What is this language that you're speaking? There would be 3 crosses.
That's the correct answer, yes. What many of crosses is 3.
What many of crosses? 3 many of crosses. No, I'm not letting you move on. I'm not letting you move on from Alexander Graham Bell, the inventor of the telephone, because actually part of Scottish national identity is to have a deep-seated belief in the greatness of Scottish inventors. And, Scottish inventors are pretty good.
I think so too.
But we do learn this story when we're growing up called "Wha's like us, damn few and they're all dead," which is Lowland Scots, so a kind of dialect of Scots language, but it means who is like us, and there isn't anybody like us, but if there were some people like us, they're now dead. And it basically, this little story that we learned tells us a day in the life of the average Englishman and talks about how everything he does in his daily life was actually invented by a Scot. And I think we can claim the telephone, even if Bell was Canadian too. We have no problem with dual nationality or even triple nationality. And, that's one of the interesting things that the UK and US have in common. We don't have a problem with this. Some countries would force you to choose. But I'm getting much more serious about the actual meaning of citizenship than anything to do with this test really justifies, because the test basically is more like getting into a weird TV game show, like a low-budget game show, or maybe a pub quiz where they haven't researched the questions very well, but you can't argue with the compere, and you're not going to get any free beer.
Jane, sticking with this Scottish inventors, it is amazing. Obviously, if we go to Alexander Fleming and then Dunlop and others, so many things in the modern world have actually been invented by Scots, and proportionally for population, it's obviously incredible. It's like comparing, the number of Jewish Nobel Prize winners. Scottish inventors is obviously a thing, and it leads you to wonder, well, why? And I'm wondering if this has to do with educational aspects, that they were not pinned in the way that until some point in the 19th century, you had to be Church of England to go to Oxford and Cambridge, and therefore tons of brilliant medical minds from the whole world went to universities in Scotland to do medical stuff, but also the class structure, that it was more independent than the hierarchical English class structure. But I don't know. So I want to know, what are your thoughts as to the roots of Scottish invention?
Some of these accounts that you give are what I was brought up thinking, and I have no idea if they are objectively true, because what we learn growing up somewhere, or what we think we believe about our country, isn't necessarily super scientific. But I think there is a belief for many people in Scotland that education has been a strength of Scotland, that we had 4 universities while Britain still had only 2, that Scots were leaders in the Enlightenment, and that there has been this culture of science and logic and a real interest in what can you know. I mean, that has existed in England as well, a radical skepticism. What can you know? What can you prove? How can you actually be sure that the sun is going to come up again tomorrow? Maybe you can't be because you're in Scotland. But, there is this scientific rationality that's been really prized among a lot of Scottish thinkers. At the same time, I rather like Fleming, because he didn't actually do very much. I mean, basically, he made this huge world-changing discovery by not cleaning up properly after his scientific experiments and then stumbling across something. So I think he can be also an icon to all of us who don't do enough tidying up.
Well said. I will use that next time I'm attacked by my mother for not tidying up properly. But,
exactly. See, Jane said, and she's Scottish, she knows. So I enjoyed also a question about NATO in here. I'm just trying to find it. But you had a multiple choice question where it basically asked you to pick 2 things that NATO did, which were about providing security and defending allies against any attacks. And then one which you could have pressed but turned out to be wrong was encouraging immigration. And you think, what are they doing? Because presumably just the fact that some of these things are listed will mean that some of the people taking the test go away only remembering that thing. NATO obviously has nothing to do with immigration, but it does sound very much like the type of conspiracy theory that you would get in Russian media. That's NATO's real agenda.
100%. I mean, there's so many hysterical aspects to this test, because it played at lots of stereotypes and jokes and really, really crazy stuff.
Here's one of my favorites, Jason. Now, let's see if you're able to answer this, because actually when you sent it to me, you didn't say what the answer was. European Christians battled during the Crusades for possession of, is it 1, Scotland, 2, London, 3, the Holy Land, or 4, it could be, the Isle of Man? What's your answer, Jason? Fingers on the buzzers, 1, 2, 3, or 4?
The Isle of Man. It's well known. It's well known.
Because where would the Son of Man come from? Why would it be called
the Isle of Man? And therefore, it was very important to retake the Isle of Man from the infidels. And Urban II in 1096 declared the First Crusade against the Isle of Man.
That's 100% right. Arise, Sir Jason Pack, Order of the British Citizen. You are the winner.
Woo!
Here's £1 million.
Woo!
And I kind of love it. I love it as a bit of counterfactual history. Things would be just so much calmer and simpler if we could just give one lot Jerusalem and one lot the Isle of Man.
I think it's roughly equivalent. I mean, in terms of history and beauty, I'll take the Isle of Man, personally.
They have their own breed of cat.
It's true, that would be a Manx cat.
Exactly. And their own form of Gaelic, so, there's lots to love about the Isle of Man.
After the break, more on the UK citizenship test.
Enter the world of sports the way you want with EA Sports College Football 26. Whether you rise through the ranks as a coach or chase greatness from high school recruit to Heisman, build your legacy and wear your colors with pride. Buy College Football 26 now at go.ea.com/MVP-bundle and bring glory home today. EA Sports College Football 26 is rated E for everyone. Includes in-game purchases, including random items.
This is history's heroes. People with purpose, brave ideas, and the courage to stand alone. Including a pioneering surgeon who rebuilt the shattered faces of soldiers in the First World War.
You know, he would look at these men and he would say, "Don't worry, Sonny. You'll have as good a face as any of us when I'm done with you."
Join me, Alex von Tunzelmann, for History's Heroes. Subscribe to History's Heroes wherever you get your podcasts.
What I think is worth pointing out in abstracting from this process, like, of course, they're going to pick random stuff for this citizenship exam, but I want to live in a country where government can build fiber optic cables, can build its own missile, and can regulate AI. I really, really do. And part of the reason that I left the United States and moved to the UK was my vision that this was a country who could more do those things. Obviously, there have been some setbacks in my views on what is capable of government or not, but I would have thought that government could administer the test itself and could pick more useful questions to inculcate a certain view of Britain, rather than whether or not dried fruits are in the Welsh cake or whatever, because this is like a very important propaganda tool. Every newly minted British citizen is going to have an emotional connection to the time that they were studying for this test. So what does this make you think about what works and what cannot work for how government operates?
It seems quite random to me. I mean, it does seem like the test is essentially throwing up items of trivia that aren't particularly related to things that you would need to know to function in the UK, and that it's odd to me that there's not more on, like, how does the political system work. I think having history does make sense. I think that having some facts about the four nations does make sense, and even having some points about popular culture. But, you know, maybe it is actually symptomatic of being a bit confused about what national identity really is. Now, I think national identity always is a bit confusing because it's not an objective, easily defined thing, and people from different places within the country and different generations will have different perspectives on what that could be. But it would actually be really cool to have some kind of national exercise where people could submit questions and you could actually use AI to sort through those and see what are the things that recur. Because I reckon you'd get loads and loads of really silly ones, but you would also get questions about David Attenborough. You know, you get questions about the NHS. You would actually get some kind of flavour of what are the things that British people think about when they think about being British. And that could be quite a nice thing to explore and potentially quite useful for someone really trying to make this place their home, which, as we know, is becoming a harder and slower process. Unless it's all a conspiracy to prevent people migrating to Britain because the test just makes them feel that the country has gone really random.
Yes, there were some good things in the test. It really stresses multiculturalism. It stresses civic obligation. That's all to the good. Like, for example, I learned questions like this. What percentage of the British population is Sikh?
It is 3%.
0.9%. I got that one correct because what percentage of the British population is Hindu?
I am guessing that is 5%.
No, it's only 2%. People tend to overstate the role of migrants. And obviously, because I know that Hindus are 2%, Sikhs have to be less than that. So they're about half, ergo 0.9%. And the British population is only 3% Muslim, whereas many people would say 7 or 8%. Do you know what I mean? Because they overstate. Because Greater London or Bradford or Birmingham looks more Muslim, but it's only 3%. The one that I found the most fascinating in learning the UK demographics is what percent of Brits say that they have no religion at all. Do you know?
I'm guessing that's the majority.
No, 36%. That feels to me very, very high.
Very high.
And that's obviously an American lens whereby people, even if they don't go to church ever, will say that they're Christian. But 36% feels extremely high. so that only 42 or something percent of the British population tell the census that they're Christian, when more than 85% of the British population is descended from people who would have told the census people that they're Christian, and that there's been a tremendous drop-off from the 1990s to now in responding to that. So yeah, you have to learn interesting things about the British demographics and about certain historical facts to pass this test, but I would like to think that the Iranian Association might not be the appropriate venue to host the Life in the UK test. What do you feel about this, Jane?
So I wouldn't be necessarily against different religious or ethnic associations hosting the test, but it also sounds to me like it was quite random and maybe based on value for money more than this being like a clever way to demonstrate the multiculturalism talked about in the test. I think there could be a way to make this like a more meaningful and interesting process, but maybe it does reflect that a lot of Brits feel a little bit uncomfortable with nationalism. There is this campaign that you'll see around the world marketing Britain, the Great Britain campaign. You get it in airports and it will say things like, football is Great Britain, which sort of doesn't really make sense. But every time I see those adverts, I hear it in my head in the voice of these characters from a comedy show called The In-Betweeners, who are like teenagers who are really sarcastic. And I hear them going, oh, culture is Great Britain. Because part of being British is kind of being a bit cynical and a bit self-deprecating.
And witty.
So I kind of appreciate that. And on the religion front, I remember like quite some years ago, there was a kind of thing that went viral around a census where people claimed that if you got enough people to say that their religion was Jedi would be recognised as an official religion. And like, I don't remember the numbers now, but loads of people put their religion down as Jedi now. Have they become the people who now say they've got no religion at all? Are they disillusioned? Or, is there a way to rebuild nationalism with Jedis?
Jane, I think one of the things that we're doing at the Disorder Podcast is trying to rebuild the religion of the populace as mega orderer. I mean, Jedi is good, but it doesn't really say your views on the UN and NATO and a range of other things like the IMF or the need for new institutions. If you just put your religion as mega orderer, it's very clear what your views are on these topics, and it could help order the universe.
Jason, I think we're going to have a really successful film series called Star Wonks. May the policy recommendations be with you.
I love it. I love it. So, Jane, will you order the disorder very, very quickly with me? Britain. We are looking in the summer of 2025 at a very disordered global picture. I still think that Britain can be an ordering player somewhere between the EU and the US, having core equities with China as well as with Africa and the Middle East. I am a big believer in the role that Britain can play globally. Expertise in certain things having to do with climate and expertise in things having to do with AI. Am I wrong? What can we take away from the aspirations of people to want to see Britain as an ordering power?
Well, I agree with you. I think that Britain has a lot of expertise to offer on these things. And I think something that I would say that I'm proud of about British culture that I believe in is a commitment to fairness, a notion of fairness in front of the law, fairness by institutions, there being some kind of moral equality among people that should be treated fairly. And it does set some expectations. Contract law comes from here. Very boring, but a demonstration of fairness. I believe in the multilateral system, Britain can do a lot of good if it builds coalitions around exactly these topics that will need to be shaped for the future because they're global and they're not going away whether or not you like globalization, like climate, like AI. I've just been talking to someone about the global risks that could emerge if there was a major volcanic explosion. We have got knowledge of the world and we've got relationships around the whole world, we could use them for good. But we do have to contend with the fact that public services are really struggling. There's a lot of issues around quality of life, quality of public spaces. The kind of feelings that you were feeling when you went to the test centre is how a lot of people are feeling when they engage with the health service or the schools or the police. So there is a massive challenge, especially with more and more money going into defence budgets, to try to uphold the basic civic contact with the state and make that quality of engagement with the state actually functioning.
All I can say is let right be done. And the tradition of fairness is very important here. And despite the fact that there was a hierarchical social order and the idea of jury by one's peers, i.e., a commoner can't judge a lord whether or not he's killed someone or not, and that there is that very hierarchical, very unfair aspect, but then there's a tradition of tremendous fairness going all the way back to Magna Carta and habeas corpus. And I have always been proud to be an English speaker and been proud to be an Anglophile. And there were aspects of, studying for things in this test where you can emerge with the view that the British role in human history has been one that has been about not just free trade, but freedom of navigation and the ability of things like contract law and dissemination of knowledge and Scottish inventions and all of that. And I just see such an opportunity now in this AI age and the age whereby America is moving towards a might makes right position. And obviously there's a lot of corruption at the top in the States in terms of, the people around the president and how they're enriching themselves with meme coin and with getting, $400 million Qatari jets and leveraging their connection to the ruler to have their funds go up and down and, betting the tariffs on inside information. I'd like to see Britain, establish itself more as a convener of the Orderers Club. Is Britain more powerful than Germany or France right now? Not necessarily. Do I think that it has more convening power? Absolutely. It's not just the English language. It's the role that Britain has traditionally played and the ability to have those equities with the US and with the EU and 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And so, yeah, I've emerged from the test, wanting to be British, but also to just try to see things in a positive light, because I think Britain can lead the Super League. Do you know what the Super League is, Jane?
Sounds like an American sports metaphor, which I, as a Scot, will not understand.
No, we're talking about the UK citizenship test. The Super League is the answer to the question, what is the tournament at the end of the rugby league club's season? The answer is the Super League, because there are questions at the test about rugby union. What is the most famous rugby union competition, Jane?
I'm going to be deported.
Six Nations. That's the answer. The Scots
I
are actually
do see it written outside pubs sometimes.
The Scots are doing very well in the Six Nations, and the Welsh are
very good. I'm very into rugby.
The Welsh are going through a rebuilding phase. But yeah, so I got the answers correct about the difference between rugby league and rugby union.
You deserve it, Jason. You will be one of us.
You know it. And also all these great Celtic questions. There were good ones about, for example, how many MSPs at Holyrood are there?
Oh, God. It's all we need to know about it is it's a slightly weird building that was very controversial at the time. Let's say 102.
No, 129. Oh, come on, Jane.
It's got a 1, it's got a 2.
How many members of Senad are there in Cardiff?
45.
60. And then lastly, at Stormont, what is the name of the members?
They are called something LA.
That's
MLA?
right. That's right. Members
MLA.
of legislative assemblies, MLAs. And how many of them are there?
An unknown number to me.
90. You see, these are the kind of things that I am very, very proud to have memorized. And I have a weird sense now of integration. Also, integration from the sense that I was already a super nerd. So now I can be a mega ordering, aspiringly British super nerd, knowing how many members of Senad there are, which is
This is very good. I see a disorder pub quiz in our future.
Oh my God, would I be killing these pub quizzes? I have one last one for you. What is the year that hereditary members of Lords were no longer able to automatically take their seat in the House of Lords?
It's really very recent. It's really very recent. Let me say under the last Labour government. So let me say 2009.
No, 1999. And I got that one. That was what I was like, come on, of course I did.
Hey, well done, well done.
Our producer has been the Welsh cake orderer-in-chief, George McDonough. If you enjoyed the silliness of this episode, please check out the Substack link in the show notes, because we're going to put some of the most hysterical questions, like who defeated the Vikings and how many of crosses are on the Union flag. We are going to put...
You defeated the Vikings!
We're going to put the answers to these great questions in the show notes. If you would like to hear bizarre, funny episodes about my or Jane's life, write us at disordershow@gmail.com, and we will maybe consider your idea for a silly episode. And we also need to have a listener's question episode, because Jane and I have not yet taken listener questions. So please write us, disordershow@gmail.com. What do we wish the orderers, Jane?
We wish you a very, 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 very orderly week. Just like being in a good queue in Britain, where at the end of it you get a lovely ice cream. Have a great day.
Are you tired of starting your day with pointless political arguments, superficial summaries, and lukewarm hot takes on the radio?
Then switch to The Bunker, where we look at the news without the nonsense.
Every weekday morning, The Bunker brings you a brand new, in-depth look at just one story.
From the chaos in Washington to the seismic political shifts in the UK.
To business, economics, history, and pop culture.
Or start your week, our essential Monday morning roundup of the week's upcoming stories.
We cut through the noise to bring you what matters.
That's The Bunker, news without the nonsense. Every weekday with me, Andrew Harrison,
Ros Taylor,
Jacob Jarvis,
Gavin Essler,
Sing Sing,
and me, Seth Tebble.
Find us wherever you get your podcasts.